Welcome everyone to the Active Travel Cafe here on 5th of December. Tonight's lineup, we have got our normal crowdsourced news session, and then we will have our guest speaker, Lucy Saunders, speaking about healthy streets. We'll have an update on healthy streets. And that's all we've got tonight. And I actually have to get to Cam Cycle's Christmas do after this. So we're going to be really great and efficient tonight and finish by 6. I hope no one's got any objections to that. So with the interest of getting on and finishing early, who's got any news for us this week? Right, Bob, you're up. Please share your news.
Hi. Yeah, Lucy Saunders will be one of our key speakers at the RDRF 30th anniversary webinar next Monday, beg your pardon. I'll put the link in the chat. Don't forget, you don't actually have to attend at the time because it's 2:00 in the afternoon. And I know a lot of you are in offices and all that kind of thing. But if you do sign up on the Eventbrite link, which is at the bottom of the post, which I'll put in the chat, you can look at the recording afterwards when you come back home in the evening. And so that's it. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Thanks, Bob. And I hope it all goes really well. Who else has got some news for us this week? Stephanie, I see a hand there. I'll just say it's best to use the hand reaction because with so many people, it's hard to see if someone's got a real hand up. But Stephanie, did you want to go?
Yes, I've done a study of air pollution, and on the top deck of a bus, it's about in Liverpool, the PM 2.5 is nearly 400, and the national standard is 20. So if the bus is taking children to school, as the 2 buses I went on, it's very, very dangerous. And something to think about is to encourage parents to make their children walk or monitor the buses that are being used on active travel.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Robin, would you like to share your news?
Yes, I just thought I should mention fundraising, Roxanne.
One of my topics.
It's a bit of a gimme for you because, as you know, we in Oxford, Cyclox, the Oxford cycling campaign successfully raised £18,500 with the aid of the Big Give partners in our fundraising. But Roxanne's going to eclipse us on that, even our wonderful success in Oxford.
Yes, Cam Cycle raised over £25,000 through the Christmas challenge. It's a match funding campaign, which I've been encouraging Oxford to do, and I'm glad it worked for you.
Yeah.
But I think that 2 local cycling campaigns have been able to raise this kind of funding to really shows that we can be financially sustainable and ramp up our work. So the goal now that Cam Cycle and Cyclox are doing this, who's next? Who can we help for the next one and get yet another campaign to that point of having staff? But yeah, really fantastic. It's a record for us, so I'm very pleased. And we also just had a grant the week before for £23,000, so we're in good shape. Adam, would you like to share your news?
Yeah, Bath and North East Somerset passed the Vision Zero motion this Thursday, which is fantastic. I know Saskia, she's presented it on Critical Mass. So Saskia Hesjed's, she's the Green Councillor that put forward the motion, and it got full backing of all councillors. So, and we think it's going to have a real impact on the way highways sort of treat some of the approaches that they're doing. But it is a phenomenal sort of first step. But yeah, just one of those things that maybe people can take into their own councils and consider, But anyway, that's it. But yes, congratulations on her. I don't think she's here today. So, but yes, brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
Good news, and hopefully inspires other areas to do the same. H, your news today.
Yeah, just had an interesting exchange with Mark about what people thought about making moves on footway parking, and making the point that legislation since 1835 has banned driving carriages on footways, but the law is a bit of an ass. It's the only moving traffic offence that requires being witness in flagrante delicto to enforce. If only we could get a small change in the law that if any wheel of your carriage is on a footway, you can be done for driving it on a footway, which means the 1835 law and the various other laws, section 129.5 of Road Scotland, can be enforced straight away on the owner of the vehicle. And immediately you've cured footway parking. The other one I did go and see the other week is Once You Know, which was a film promoted by Extinction Rebellion that was put on by the School of Art. And for 40 years, people have been drawing the exponential curve of temperature climb, oil consumption and population growth, realizing that at some point it's going to topple over. And it's a very interesting film making the case of how wars and other things are pushed because we're running out of stuff and there's not enough of it to go around. Very good film.
Okay, thanks H for your recommendation. Jimmy, would you like to share your news? You're on mute.
I did. I unmuted. I'm remuting myself within 1 second. Thank you very much, Chair. Yep, Jimmy Walker from Salisbury Cogs. We are going to be hosting a travel conference, active travel conference, on the 24th of February in Salisbury. And we've got the whole support of the City Council. We hope that many people who are on today will think about coming along. We've got Rachel Aldred, Ian Walker, Isabel Clement from Wheels for Wellbeing. We've got Peter Walker from The Guardian and Emily Kerr from Oxford all coming along. So we hope we'll have an audience for which they can present to. So looking to all you guys for support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jimmy. And Jimmy, if you could put a link in the chat, I'm sure that will help people find out more about it.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Mike, your news.
Very quickly, down here in Exeter, we've got the third year of a trial of treating our cycleways during the winter icy periods, which has been a campaign topic for us for some years now. And our council have been presenting at various conferences about how well they're doing. So I hope that'll mean that the temporary trial will lock itself into as a permanent feature for our winter treatment.
Oh, that's good to hear. I actually crashed a cargo bike on an icy path on Saturday. I'm amazingly unscathed, but it wasn't fun. So it's definitely important to do. Yes. Okay. Any other news from anyone today? No. Well, I'll share a little bit from Cambridge. We had a range of modal filters and other active travel schemes approved today at our Highways Committee, which is great news. And it was quite a fun one to watch, given some of the interesting comments made about CamCycle and just how powerful we must be for all these things to be happening. Perhaps a bit of an own goal there from the commenters. But anyway, there's some gold there that we hopefully will put on social media soon. But good to see more modal filters getting signed off. Tim, your news.
Just nipping in for one from London. I saw London Cycling Campaign had a little video up of the work starting on the Holborn gyratory system with a nice Camden fly through of how it's going to be 10 years in the making. And no one else has mentioned it and there were no other hands up, so I thought I'd put it in there.
Thank you, Tim. And maybe a link to that video or that fly through, if we could have that, would be great. Ruth, your news.
Oh, very quickly, Richmond Council have actually listened to Richmond Cycling Campaign. They put in a proposal to remove a tiny safe bit of cycling infrastructure between Bushy Park and Hampton Court Bridge. and they proposed removing it and making people who cycle share with people who walk. And there was such pushback on that, they are rethinking it and they won't be doing that. So exciting news from Richmond. Thank you.
Good. So frustrating that it's not just about getting good stuff put in, but then defending it remaining is frustrating. Ruth, also on news, how are you? Are you okay? After you...
I sliced my thumb as well as my bike.
Oh no, just adding more. Well, it's good to see you here and cheerful.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that is probably time to call an end to the news session and to start what we're really here for, which is our guest speaker. So I'm very delighted to welcome Lucy Saunders to Active Travel Cafe today to give us an update on healthy streets. Now, Lucy tells me that lots of us have probably heard of this already, but Lucy, I hope you can give us a bit of history as well as your update for anyone who might not be familiar. But I shall hand it over to you now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces, and so this is a bit of an update on what Healthy Streets is doing, and then you can ask me all the tricky questions you want to afterwards. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Lucy. I'm a public health specialist by background. I work for quite a long time now in the world of transport and built environment. I developed the Healthy Streets approach and worked for a number of years in London to help them to implement it there. And now I work with other parts of England and other countries in Europe, Australia and New Zealand. And I'm sure some of you will want to know where I'm working in England. So I thought at this point, I'll run through the local authorities that I've been working with over the last year so that you know. In no particular order, Lancashire, Birmingham, Liverpool, Milton Keynes, Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Hertfordshire, Hampshire, Devon, Cornwall, and bits of London. I know that lots of other parts of the country are also working with the Healthy Streets tools, which are freely available for anyone to use. And we have absolutely tons of people who've completed Healthy Streets training from authorities across the country. So that list is just the ones who I've been doing further in-depth dedicated work with over recent months. So for those of you who don't know what Healthy Streets is, it is in a nutshell just these 10 indicators presented here in this circular diagram. And this is the foundation of the whole approach. It is saying we're going to look at all of our street environments, all of our decision making that relates to street environments with this as our core purpose. At the top and the bottom, we have the most important, which are that we create environments that are accessible and welcoming to everyone, in which all people can choose to walk and cycle as part of their daily lives. We address the 4 big negative health impacts of car-dominated public spaces, which are clean air, not too noisy, people feel safe and easy to cross. And we acknowledge that human beings are sensory animals and that we need to think about the quality of the experience of being in public spaces, looking at shade and shelter, regular opportunities to rest, the factors that influence how relaxed we feel and how interesting and engaging our environment is. So these indicators are not a list of 10 things you'd find on a street. They're 10 aspects of the human experience that need to be prioritized in our decision making. And they are all interconnected. So anything we do on a street is going to have a knock-on impact from one indicator onto the next. So you should never be looking at anything, picking out one of these indicators in isolation. So that's it very briefly. It is going beyond the challenging job of trying to claw back space for people to walk and cycle. So this is a no doubt hard fought for bi-directional cycle track and a pavement, but it is going beyond this kind of ask and saying this is the minimum. Beyond this, we need to provide appropriate lighting, shade and shelter. We need regular opportunities to stop and rest. It needs to feel safe and overlooked. It needs to be an engaging environment. It needs to be welcoming to all. It's not just about, therefore, building routes. It is not about having all the bits but not put together in the right way. So this is an example of a street where someone might look at it and say, well, you should be happy with that. You've got space for cycling, you've got planting, you've got pavements, you've got a cycle hire, everything's there, but it's not been put together in a way that prioritises the human experience, and therefore people do not choose to walk and cycle in this location. And it's not just looking at the world through the lens of one mode or another. So it's not saying, great, this is a win for cycle facilities. It's saying, is this a win for human beings using this space? So have we made sure that people walking, people spending time, and people cycling are all being thought of, as well as those using public transport? So it is a challenging approach to try to apply. The thing that most people are familiar with is the design tool. So I thought I'd give a little update on Healthy Streets in design. So the Healthy Streets design check, there are 4 versions at the moment. All of them are freely available for anyone to download from Healthy Streets website. There's one for England, one for Australia, one for New Zealand, one for Budapest. It's a very simple spreadsheet tool. It's intended for use not by the general public or by policymakers, but by designers and engineers. It assesses how well the design of a street is prioritising the Healthy Streets indicators, and nothing more than that. You can use it on an existing street layout, or on a retrospective look back, or a proposed design. It's quick to do when you do it all the time. And it gives a score for the design of that street out of 100. It's only looking at a limited set of metrics, so it's not a fully comprehensive, detailed Healthy Streets assessment, but it's taking a limited set of metrics and giving you a score that means you can compare lots of different streets to see how well they perform. It has its limitations and it has a very specific purpose, so it doesn't do everything for everyone. So the England version of the tool was commissioned by Department for Transport, and it was developed in partnership with lots of designers from local authorities around the country who had done Healthy Streets Foundation training. It's been recommended in Local Transport Note 120, and it is reflecting all of the standards and expectations of that guidance material. So it's not a matter of duplication. If you're applying LTM 120 to a design, you will get a good score coming out for your Healthy Streets design check. Just a few notes on the Healthy Street design check. I know lots of people are out there using this tool. The tool is only of value if it's been correctly completed. Anyone can fill this in. They can put any numbers in they like, and they can tell you what the score is. But if they haven't filled it in right, the information is pretty useless. And if no one does anything with it, it's even more useless. You should always, if someone says they've done a Healthy Streets design check, ask to have a look at the completed check and review for yourself whether they've completed it correctly and that you fully understand their justification for all their scoring, and never take a Healthy Streets check score on face value. So that's a little bit on design, but Healthy Streets is not all about design. It's about 3 elements. So one part is about design, but it's also about how streets are managed and how they're used. And a big challenge facing us around the country is around communications and framing. So it's trying to shape our framing of our proposals from one in which members of the public feel something's been taken from them to one in which people feel something's been given to them. So the reason why Healthy Streets is presented in the way it is to enable the whole system to work collaboratively. We've got lots of different stakeholders, lots of different sectors who all need to work together to change the way our streets are designed and managed and used. They've all got different priorities and interests. They may not be interested in public health like me. They may not be interested in cycling or walking or transport. And this framework tries to bring people together with a very varied set of priorities to deliver good outcomes for people. A lot of delivering Healthy Streets is about coordination. So making sure that policies are aligned with delivering the indicators. And I'm doing some work at the moment on how developers can incorporate it into the planning process. It's about communications. I do a lot of work with authorities on how to reframe their language and their imagery so that they can better communicate the outcomes they're trying to achieve. Evaluation is very important. If you want to see an evaluation of a Healthy Streets project, there's one on the website that you can download that takes you through the whole project and how it was evaluated. It's in essence 3 low traffic neighbourhoods that have been implemented and made permanent, and you can see what the results were of that. A lot of it is about capacity building, especially with officers and elected members. So here we have elected members in Essex who are out on the street doing Healthy Streets assessments. It's about strategic coordination, and this is an example of the Healthy Streets Index that we use for strategic coordination. And I'm also running a programme on maintenance, working with maintenance officers to see what they can do that is cost neutral or cost saving that delivers better street environments for people. So there's a whole raft of Healthy Streets tools. They're all freely available for you to download and use. There are some other things as well, so I thought I'd just wrap up by telling you what else is out there, and then you can ask me any questions that you might have. So first of all, everything can be got from healthystreets.com/resources. There's a whole page there. You can download anything you want. There are videos if you want to watch a longer video on what Healthy Streets is. There are tools, case studies. This is the one I mentioned before, the Healthy Streets Southwark project, interviews and academic papers. So we've just published an academic paper in Transport and Health, I think last week or the week before. So you can get all the links on the Healthy Streets website. If you're particularly interested in design, there's a YouTube video with a 30-minute introduction to the Design Check tool. If you go to this part of the Healthy Streets resources page, this is where you download the Design Check, and this is where you click to watch the video. And there's training courses. So over the last 3 years, I've trained nearly 250 people across England in groups of 15 at a time, and about 250 people across Europe, Australia and New Zealand, again in groups of 15 at a time. And they have been doing the foundation course, which is a 6-week course. The next one starts on the 15th of January. It is a mega time commitment, 2-hour seminar, a 1-hour homework task and a 1-hour tutorial each week. It covers all aspects of delivering systems change. Participants try out the tools and techniques each week, and it is aimed at senior decision makers in government primarily. If anyone knows someone who might be interested in booking, they can email training@healthystreets.com. There's a course that's suitable for everyone called Healthy Streets Fundamentals. It's much more light touch. It's 3 2-hour online seminars using Zoom. It's £160, including VAT per participant. You can book it via Eventbrite, and the sessions are next on the 4th, 11th and 18th of March. And then there's training for designers. So there's a detailed training course that you can undertake on how to use the design tool correctly and embed it within an organisation. And that's 6 sessions over 4 weeks. Obviously, it's for designers and engineers, and make sure they're using the tool correctly and they're supporting others to do the same. So, quick run through there of what's going on in the world of Healthy Streets. And now I'm going to hand back and see what people want to ask.
Thank you, Lucy. Really great to see the update on Healthy Streets. And I had no idea it was being used all around the world like that. So that's an amazing achievement, and congratulations on going global. So I've got a question for you, and hopefully some more questions will pop into the chat. This one has come from Ruth, and I think it's really interesting because it made me think how a healthy street could change as the seasons change or other factors change. So it's maybe not something that can just be done at a fixed point in time. So Ruth's question is maintenance discussed? There are so many cycle lanes that are not gritted or swept, and the councils don't build that into their budgets. So I guess the specific detail about maintenance and gritting, but also how do we look at healthy streets across the seasons?
Yeah. So organisations that are taking the Healthy Streets approach are looking at every single internal process that is going on and seeing how it needs to be changed and realigned. And that will include looking at maintenance programs and making sure that they are prioritising differently in terms of what they do, like Ruth's example. So that is all part of delivering Healthy Streets. So the authorities that are going through that in-depth process are looking at those exact things.
Thanks, Lucy, and a thumbs up from Ruth there. That's good. A question from Shan. How would you think, how would you use this in complement with local similar but not exactly the same tools? So I guess there's a bit of competition over which tools we should be using where. And so Shan's put forward the tool in Manchester, which is Streets for All. How does that compare to Healthy Streets?
So my understanding, Streets for All is the strategy document for Manchester. I did write it, I think. I don't know what finally got published, but I wrote one version of it. So that's a strategy which says our vision is to deliver great streets for people, and Healthy Streets is very much aligned with that. You can then use Healthy Streets tools if you're delivering a similar kind of approach. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. I guess there's a difference between tools and approaches. So there's lots of organisations that might say our approach is whatever they want to call it, whatever's going to land well, that's the external communications. But you might use some Healthy Streets tools in order to deliver whatever your approach is. And I do encourage people not to focus too much on the name Healthy Street. So you don't need to brand anything. You don't need to call your program Healthy Streets. Call your program whatever is going to resonate well with the people you're trying to communicate with. And it's probably not Healthy Streets, but you can use the Healthy Streets tools. They're all available for everyone to use. So the thing that makes me nervous is when people change the name of everything to Healthy Streets and then carry on doing exactly what they did all along, which is the exact opposite of delivering Healthy Streets. I'd rather you never mention Healthy Streets and make streets better for people.
Yeah, so it's about making sure you've got a good methodology, whatever you use and whatever you call it.
Yeah, so call it whatever you want. There are, in terms of tools and DFT, they have been trying their best to make sure that it's clear which tools to use in which circumstances. And of course, Healthy Streets Design Check is a DFT tool that Active Travel England encourage people to use. And we did work hard with DFT to make sure that all of the DFT guidance is fully aligned with what we've got in that tool. So it should reduce the burden on officers if they're doing their Healthy Streets Design Check, that it means they don't have to do other things.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Question from Jill and Jimmy. Do you gather the before and after metrics to look at usage and to influence public health and active travel goals? I guess impact measurement always helps.
Yes, so that's why I mentioned twice this evaluation that we've done, because we did interventions in 3 neighbourhoods. We collected data before, during and afterwards, and we also had 2 control locations where we did the exact same data collection. So we could look at not only whether we had changed how people were using the streets, what people thought about the streets and how the streets were designed before and after, but also how did they compare with 2 locations where we felt nothing much would have changed during that time period. So a proper case control study, which is not really done in the UK in transport. It's done in public health all the time, but not really done in transport. So it's a good model to follow. And if you want to do something similar, there's a Healthy Streets evaluation framework, which is a step-by-step guide for doing that, which you can get off the Healthy Streets website as well.
Thanks, Lucy. Okay, shall we go to Rachel, an in-person question?
Yeah, so we've got a particularly challenging street here, which is, it's got 2 schools, a nursery, a leisure centre. It's one way and it's got parked cars on it, and it's chaos. Is that an appropriate setting to do a Healthy Streets assessment on it? It's one that I want to do with one of the councillors here, and then use that evidence to move forward with in terms of introducing a school street or whatever other measures we decide to do there. So is that the appropriate way to use the tool?
So,
and can we do it ourselves like that?
What I would recommend, what I would do if I was in your shoes, is I would go with the counsellor and the Healthy Streets qualitative assessment tool, not the design check tool. So the qualitative tool is easy for everyone to understand, and it is much more comprehensive in its coverage than the design check tool. So the aim of the design check tool is to prompt designers to make sure that they are covering the basic fundamentals of street design in terms of safe space for cycling, safe space for walking, appropriate crossing facilities, those kinds of things. Whereas the qualitative assessment is thinking about a lot more things that are maybe outside of the gift of the designer to influence, which could be to do with maintenance, activation of buildings, traffic management, all sorts of other things. So it'll give you a much more rounded picture of what the opportunities are on that street for example, introducing a school street or whatever you see as most appropriate.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. Okay, question. Is there a way of finding out if our councillors or local authority transport teams have done the relevant training? I'm guessing short of an FOI. Any suggestions, Lucy?
Yes. So on the website, there is a PDF document which lists every single person who has completed foundation training. So you need to know the first name and surname of the person that you're looking for and go and have a look through the list. So that's how you find people who've done foundation training. And also we have a list for people who've done design check training. What I would say is it needs to be updated, particularly for Hampshire. So if you're in Hampshire, there are loads of people in Hampshire who have done Healthy Streets training in the last few months, and I haven't updated the list yet. It's almost at the point with Hampshire now where you can probably assume that they have done the training because so many of them have. But yes, you should be able to get that information from that list. A lot of people have also attended a one-off session or a short course or something else, but this list is telling you the people who've done that really in-depth training, which is quite a big commitment. So it doesn't mean if someone's name's not on the list that they've never done any Healthy Streets training, but I wouldn't be 100% confident that they know everything that they need to know.
Thanks, Lucy. Bob, your question.
Yeah, I mean, what really chimed with me there was about when people use the phrase without actually having done the right thing. And I mean, we get this with road danger reduction all the time. People saying, oh yeah, we do road danger reduction, and they don't. And you're getting that with Healthy Streets. Now, how can you actually do you have to get tough with them? I mean, you did have a legal case over the intellectual property value of the phrase, but how do you actually engage with people who say they're doing it, but they aren't?
I don't know that there's much of an issue with it. I think there are so many people now in the UK, particularly in government, in local government, who've done Healthy Streets training. I think it's pretty well understood what it is. And I don't get people coming to me saying, oh, someone said this thing is Healthy Streets. I don't think it is. So maybe I'm unaware, but as far as I know, I don't think it's an issue.
Right. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Lucy. Back to the questions in the chat. From Adam, a Healthy Streets framework, or is the Healthy Streets framework using a KPI as part of the active travel capability self-assessment? Have I got that right, Adam? I couldn't quite get that.
Right, okay, there's the active travel capability assessment that all counts or how is it doing. Is the framework an indicator of good practice, and is that being scored well? Or is it just that there isn't that sort of indicator being pushed by the DFT or active traveling?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Right, there we go. Ruth, do you want to jump in with your question? And is that the same one as in the chat? Let me know if we need to do two.
No, it's the same one as in the chat. Thanks, Lucy. I remember meeting you in early days at TfL. Lovely to see you, and thank you. Very quickly, so you mentioned the Department for Transport. So they put in a new cycle walking lane at a new school in Cobham, which is Surrey. And it's on old design. So there's a giveaway at every single side junction, including driveways, places where people don't go in and out much. It's very dangerous. None of us use it. And I just wondered, have the DFT been updated on this kind of infrastructure? Because it's a very poor use of money. And again, drivers will just go, oh, they always see we build this and no one uses it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the details of it. I haven't done any training with anyone in Surrey, so that might help. But it's a long process between things getting signed off and things getting built. But I would think that someone like Brian Deegan would be able to advise on that, because Active Travel England are the ones who are going and having a look at all of this stuff. No doubt there's a story behind it, but I'm afraid I don't know about it.
All right, thank you. But it was DFT funded, so I presume it's their design. But thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. Have we got any more questions for Lucy? My goodness. Really? Okay. Well, other than I would like to know, has anyone from Cambridge done the training? But I guess I can go and look on that PDF that you mentioned, and we shall find out. I guess, Lucy, I've got a bit of a question, and sorry if I've missed something in tracking questions and so on, but it feels like we're talking a lot about people who are professionals who work in this space, but for those advocates and campaigners, can they do the training, and do you have any advice on how we might use that tool, particularly if it's not being used in our regions?
So the fundamentals course, which I mentioned, which is that we've just had one, but the next one is going to be in March. That is suitable for everyone, and I would really recommend that, because it's not too much of a time burden. It's just 3 sessions, and it gives you a really, really good overview of what all the tools are and how they work, and what kind of things you can do and what you can ask for from a campaigning perspective. All of the tools are available to you. So if you as a campaigner know the ins and outs of street layouts, you can probably use that design check tool as well, if not better, than the officers in the council. And likewise, there's a qualitative assessment tool, there's an evaluation framework. If you yourself are not especially interested in using all these tools, you can just ask the question of your local authority. So have your officers been using these tools? Have they been trained to use the tools? Please, can you see the outputs? So a reasonable thing, I think, to ask is, for every project that's being implemented in your local authority area, please can you see the completed Healthy Streets design check for that, which will show you how the street currently performs and what the proposed design is intending to address, and their justification for why they're not addressing issues that are being flagged up in the Healthy Streets design check tool as problematic. I think that's a really helpful thing for you to be asking them for. You can just direct them towards training that you think they might find useful in a friendly and supportive way.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm wondering if there's even an opportunity. We might have some funding that we could put through a number of volunteers. Could be something we could do. And someone in the chat is already pointing out we have had some Cambridge officers trained, so that's really good to know. Adam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, this one's more. You commented on the fact that people hijack the term. Is it how have you countered that? Because clearly, we have the same problem with the concept of, we know what a low traffic neighborhood is. Low traffic neighborhood is a good thing. The term low traffic is good, but lots of councils shy away for it, so they use terms like livable neighborhood. At which point, when they bring in livable neighborhood, they go, well, we don't need traffic calming or traffic reduction. We just need benches. And that sort of, it twists it into trying to repurpose money aimed at one thing for another. So how have you kind of countered that sort of culture where they're desperate to give it a label, but it actually doesn't mean what it says anymore?
Yeah, so sorry, I know my internet's not great, so I'm not sure if you can hear me.
You're fine.
I'll switch my camera off just in case that helps. I don't think people have hijacked it. I think people have enthusiastically embraced a term of something that they saw as being positive and didn't quite do all of the background reading on what is required. And actually, to deliver Healthy Streets is really difficult and complicated and takes a lot of time and effort. So I see it all as being very well intentioned. I think there is a whole issue around all aspects of communication, not just the terms themselves, but all of our language and imagery in this sector, and also the way that we're designing streets in ways that maybe don't resonate with people. I think there's a whole slew of things that we need to be doing differently to change the conversation with the public. And if you do one of my training courses, you'll find out more about that. That's my short answer.
Loving the hard sell. No, that's, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. That's good. It's part of what you're doing. It's really, the work you're doing is phenomenal.
Okay, we've got a question from Lee. Has much work been done with making developers aware of healthy streets? That's a really good question. I'm thinking the same for my region. There's a lot of large developments with new street layouts going in, and we want them to be healthy streets.
Yeah, so I'm doing some work at the moment with London. They have probably the best planning policy around healthy streets. So if you want to see good practice, look at, I think it's policy T2 in the London plan, which sets out what's expected of developers in terms of delivering healthy streets. So they probably have the best in terms of policy, and currently working on updating the requirements of developers in that whole negotiation process of getting planning applications signed off. I have worked with a forward-thinking developer who really wanted to show best practice in terms of healthy streets. There's a lot more work to do with developers. I've also done work with development control officers in a number of local authorities, and helping to equip them to have the different kind of conversations with developers about what's expected of them and how to get different outcomes. So there's a lot of work to do in that area, and I think one of the best ways in is with those development control officers.
Thanks, Lucy. And that could be something for, where the advocates in communities can really be pushing the developers to adopt these things, even if the local authority's not pushing it. A question from Graham, and then we'll come to Stephanie. Graham, I think there was talk some time ago of a Healthy Streets mobile phone app. Is this still on the cards?
Oh, it is. It is. It's the thing I need to do and never have the time to do. It's so frustrating. I'm just absolutely swamped with work and have been since day one. And I really am trying my best to get that out there. The idea is that we'll have a simple quantified tool that everyone can use, so that you don't have to look to the designers to use the design check tool. It's all there ready to go. It's just about making it happen. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to it. And if you need help, I'm sure there are plenty of people in here with lots of enthusiasm.
If anyone's got loads of tech skills in developing and producing web-based platforms, give me a call.
Look out, Cambridge. Stephanie, your question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is there a systematic way of making air quality assessments on healthy streets? I walk around with a portable PM2.5 monitor, and I stand at certain locations, and sometimes the air pollution is enormous, and it depends on the direction of the wind as well, the prevailing winds especially.
Yeah, so within the Healthy Streets tools that we've got at the moment, for the index, we use the model data across the whole region. We're not just looking at PM2.5, but also NOx as well. For the design check tool, we're asking the designers to measure things that they have some control over. So they're looking at traffic volumes and traffic speeds, road surfaces, the things that we want them to change in the design to help to improve air quality. But we're not trying to reproduce things that exist already. So there are lots of tools out there that authorities and other agencies are using for measuring air quality. And we just try and raise the profile of the importance of clean air as part of delivering healthy streets, and therefore push that way to get more of a focus on the topic.
Yes, well DEFRA and even the World Health Organization are prioritising PM2.5, and in Liverpool there is only one operational monitor for that.
Thanks, Stephanie. We've touched on this, but a slightly different angle. Question from Sally. Are there any examples of the tool being used in transport assessments of large planning applications? And Sally is trying to stop a parcel distribution centre being allowed close to an active travel corridor?
Yes, there are. I know it's happening a lot in London because it's written into the rules that people have to do it. I don't know about outside of London, I'm afraid. It's a bit more patchy. I know that some places where I've been working, they have been doing it, but we're not in a situation where it's uniform. And when it's not written into planning policy, it's very difficult to put these requirements in place later on.
Yeah. And Edward Lee has kindly shared in the chat the London Plan Policy T2 Healthy Streets, if anyone wants to have a look at that. And an interesting comment from Pearl saying, as a transport planner, she used healthy streets in London all the time, but it would be great to see it used in more rural places where it's really needed.
Yeah, it's interesting that most of the places that I'm working are very rural, and of course I come from a rural area myself, so it's always been front of mind for me since I first developed it to make sure that this framework and all the tools work just as effectively on a street in a small village, which could barely even be called a street, as well as in a city centre. So I am hoping that within a couple of years we're going to have lots of much better concrete examples of projects that have been delivered in villages and on rural lanes, which we could look to and say this is a healthy streets improvement.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. Okay, any more questions? This is the final call for questions. I think we're done. Excellent. Well, just some good comments coming in about
Hang on, I think there's
other
Dave.
places.
If you want to talk, you need to raise your hand using the app, not just wave it. But Dave,
oh yeah, no, if you're waving at it, we won't see it. Excellent. Anyway, so we've just got some good chats coming on. One very final question that we'll ask is, has this been shared with NHS estates colleagues? Because clearly anything in healthcare should be thinking about the environment in which it's placed.
Yeah, I think it should be. I don't know that it has. They haven't approached me, so I haven't spoken to them myself. Others might have been having those conversations. So if you want to send people my way, my email address is lucysaunders@healthystreets.com, and I'll put that in the chat now so that you've all got it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lucy. Lots of praise in the chat. And thank you to everybody for their contributions throughout as well. A great team effort to track down various policies and find out if people in our local patch have been doing the training. Lucy, wonderful to have an update from you and to see just, I remember the first presentation I had of Healthy Streets, and it was this wonderful new idea, and look how far it has come and how useful it has been to changing our streets. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Now, I did say that we would wrap up by 6. However, that gives us 5 minutes. So I know there's been a couple of other things in the chat that haven't been covered by Lucy's talk. So I will say, if someone's got a really burning issue that you really need some help with in the next 5 minutes, I'll open the chat for a bit of general discussion. And to anyone who might have to go, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Actually, just before that happens, I'll just make sure I tell you what's happening next week. And then if anyone needs to pop off, you can, while we have a bit of general chat. I believe, Dave, you've got your hand up. So if it's on Healthy Streets, I'll let you sneak in one last question while I look that up. Dave, off you go.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's not so much a question. I thought there would be some time for me to maybe introduce myself and Branby Radio. We're a nascent radio station dedicated to the planet. We'll be mixing music and spoken word, good, encouraging news and stories. I've previously attended, under my other hat as coordinator of Brighton and Hove Friends of the Earth group, the Southeast Climate Alliance, and they were kind enough to put news of the station into their newsletter. And I was just wondering if there's some way of letting you guys know, because I can recognize a few names from Brighton. There's Mark and there's Becky, and of course they're representative of a fund of experience, knowledge, expertise, projects, missions, which are all great stories. So I'd like to
Okay,
reach
I'll
out.
suggest an email to Active Travel Cafe. Tell us a bit more and we'll see what we can do. And definitely put some information in the chat. I'm sure we'll have lots of attendees today who are very interested. And yes, we have our news section at the start every week. So if there's more news on this, you're very welcome to share that at the start of our Active Travel Cafe sessions. But thanks for joining us and sharing.
Thank you.
Right, I'll quickly tell everyone our speaker for next week is Elsa Devienne from Northumbria University, and she will be sharing her research into the history of the school run. That sounds really interesting, and I bet that's changed a lot over the preceding decades. So that's what we've got next week. And so in our final 5 minutes, anyone who's got just something, a burning question they need to ask. I know there was something about bollards that I'm sure Graham would love to ask as well. So put your hand up and let's see where we go.
I've forgotten how to put my hand up. Anyway, just to say, following on from St Botolph's roundabout fiasco in Colchester, Colchester Cycling Campaign has discussed it, and we have decided, we've actually written to Michael Gove, co of Will Quince, our MP, and said, most of this money is coming from you via the Levelling Up Fund, Mr. Gove, but we believe Essex is wasting it. We don't want you to lose the money, but at the same time, we want you to make sure the taxpayer gets value for money. Could you have a look at it, please? And we've also copied that into Active Travel England. So we'll let you know how we get on.
Do let us know how you get on, Will. Thank you. Graham, would you like to ask your question?
I think I'll give up because it's 4 minutes to and you've got a party to go to.
We'll carry it over until next week. And there was certainly some some conversation in the chat. So if anyone wants to have a read, and maybe we can come back prepared to solve Graham's problem. H, have you got a question for us?
Well, I was just going to make a note to Graham. I want to take up some detail because we've done an investigation with his Mr. Muddle on risk management about the fatality with the Hanson truck. I'd like to have an investigation of that and have a closer look at it, particularly getting more Section 39 stuff. And Dave in Brighton, I'm hoping we can do something to help withdrawal symptoms for car addicts and help them remove their driving blinkers. Because I think that's an area where broadcasters are not doing. We have the LEZ and people whining, how am I going to drive to work when the roads are closed? And we can give them the answers.
Okay, thanks, H. Right, I think that is us for the day. I'm sure, I know some of our other attendees are also coming to the same Christmas party as I am, so I think we're all ready to wrap things up, and we will see each other again next week, and I hope you all have a lovely evening, safe cycling. Thanks for joining us.